Welcome to Bedtime FairyFails. I'm Kim. This story was made possible in part by the live play D&D podcast All D20. We'll tell you a little more about them after the show. This story was sent in by Amanda in Denmark. This is a tale about resourcefulness, ingenuity, and a complete misunderstanding. This is...
Mistaken Identity.
Once upon a time, a party of heroes had just defeated a cult that worshipped wind elementals. On the way to the cult, though, one of the members noticed a tower called Feathergale Spire. And since it was part of the cult, he wanted to swing back around and destroy the altar there on the way back.
It was a paladin that wanted to go back, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, of course. It's always a paladin. But anyway, the party was made up of a wizard named Ren, another wizard named Arya, a fighter named Dulcinea, a paladin named Hector, and a Goliath barbarian named Theon. The party arrived back at the tower after dark, which was perfect for a stealthy mission. But first, they had to figure out how to infiltrate the tower. You see, there was only one entrance to the tower, and it was guarded and closed up tight. So, unless they wanted to go in spells blazing, that wasn't an option. They eventually spot a window up on the third floor. Theon the Barbarian offers to use his crossbow along with Ren's long rope to give them a way in. But unfortunately, no one had a grappling hook. Just as the party is getting ready to abandon that plan, Dulcinea says,
"What if we tie this rope to this immovable rod? In case my fellow adventurers here don't know what that is, it's this flat iron rod I have here that will magically freeze in place and hold up to 8,000 pounds. We can shoot it up to the window, speak the command phrase, then one of us can sneak in."
The party excitedly agrees before Arya chimes in with,
"But if you shout the command phrase, they'll hear us."
"Oh yeah, that's true,"
replies Dulcinea. The group brainstorms for a few minutes before finally deciding to use sending stones, which work basically like magical walkie-talkies. They tie one to the rod and keep one with them. They then load the immovable rod into the crossbow, launch it at the window, and say the command phrase into the stone.
"Simon says stop!"
Success! The rod freezes in place and the rope is secured. The group quickly decides to send in Theon, the Goliath barbarian, to sneak down all 3 floors and open the front gate for them. Yep, that's right. They're sending in their 8-foot-tall barbarian to carry out their stealth mission. At least Arya had the forethought to loan him her magic boots of elven kind to boost his stealthiness. Theon climbs the rope up to the 3rd floor and slips quietly through the open window. He's in a large room and can see 2 guards sleeping and a steward by the fire reading a book. He tippy-toes like you wouldn't believe through that room without making a sound. He crouches down and begins to creep down the stairs. He comes to a single guard standing outside a door. Again, he creeps over without a sound while somehow hiding his giant body. He then knocks out the guard and continues on. His journey to the 1st floor went unbelievably smooth. He snuck past guards, knocking each of them out one by one. When he gets to the bottom floor, he sees 2 guards on either side of the room, one of which was guarding the lever to the front gate. Theon channels his inner elf and becomes the stealthiest Goliath barbarian that has ever been. He sneaks up behind the guard by the lever, inches from her back. She doesn't even notice. He proceeds to bonk her over the head and pulls the lever. The other guard gives a confused look across the room.
Huh?
As he suddenly notices the 8-foot Goliath that had just knocked out his partner. He doesn't have much time to ponder it, though, as the rest of the party storms through the front gate and quickly renders him unconscious as well. The heroes search the first floor and find the armory. So, just for some extra insurance, they go ahead and rig the entire first floor with explosives. With everything in order, they prepare to head up the tower. But that's when they notice a single steward coming down the stairs. He looks extremely confused and asks,
What's going on here?
That's when Hector the Vengeance Paladin does what Vengeance Paladins do best. He gives a dramatic speech about how cultists ruined his life and how he's sworn vengeance on them.
You know what's going on here, you vile cultist! My mother was in a cult. She joined, and as soon as she joined, she took away my chocolate milk. How could you take something like that away from a child? Well, I'll save all the future children and make sure they all have chocolate milk. Now die, cultist!
The steward gives him a blank stare for a moment before saying,
But we're not cultists. I don't know anything about a cult. Sir, this is a Wendy's.
At first, the paladin didn't believe him. But after some discussion, the party finally convinces him that the tower is actually just a Wendy's. The heroes spend the rest of the night going floor to floor in the tower, apologizing to each guard that their incredibly stealthy Goliath knocked out, while also disarming all their explosives and booby traps. So remember, guys, if you're going to attack some cultists, you should probably make sure that they are, in fact, cultists. The end. This is another story from our favorite bartender, the same submitter that gave us the tale of the Dragonborn Brothers. Now brings us a fantastic tale about a Ghostrider, an arch nemesis, and a cursed goat. This is
Goatsrider.
Once upon a time, there was a Genasi cleric who went by the name Ghostrider. Now, a Genasi is the descendant of a fire elemental and a human, which means that Ghostrider's hair was made of flames. As for how he got his name, whenever anyone would ask, he would just say,
It was a nickname from clerical school that just stuck.
Now, Ghostrider was part of a group of heroes that were questing to save a large metropolis, righting wrongs, thwarting gangsters, defeating werewolves, and burning orphanages for the greater good. You know, general murder hobo etiquette. One day, while the party was out questing, they were attacked by a group of mercenaries, the leader of which seemed to have some kind of vendetta against Ghostrider. He was a dwarf who rode a very ragged goat that screams randomly. Ah! And it turns out he went by the name the Goatsrider and was super pissed that people kept confusing the two of them. Ghostrider, Goatrider, you see the problem here. So, the Goatrider decided to do the mature thing and just go kill Ghostrider and everyone he cared about.
Prepare to die, you imposter!
The Goatrider yelled. Ghostrider wasn't even a little bit afraid, though, as he ran into battle screaming,
I'ma get that goat!
The two riders fought a bloody, brutal battle, both being careful not to harm the goat. Eventually, the Goatrider was vanquished and the Ghostrider was victorious. But the rest of the party was still under attack by the mercenaries. The battle was so intense that once it was over, the goat was gone. Luckily for the Ghostrider, actually I should probably say unluckily, but either way, he eventually got a second chance to claim the goat as his own. You see, the Goatrider had a son, and Goatrider, second of his name, came after Ghostrider for revenge. This battle was much shorter, and Ghostrider came out victorious once again, this time claiming the goat as his own. When he mounted the goat, it suddenly exploded in fire. It turns out the goat was actually a demon, and Ghostrider was now cursed to be...
The Goatsrider.
Though in some ways he was more powerful now, he also had to be careful of radiant magic and doorways. Since Goatsrider wasn't used to riding a goat, he would frequently forget to duck when riding through them and would whack his head on the top. In fact, Goatsrider almost met his end once simply by riding through a peaceful hallway full of doors. Worst of all was the fact that every time Goatsrider would try to speak, the goat would scream over him.
Hey, do you guys want to go? Never mind.
Eventually, this all became a little too much to bear, and the Goatsrider became depressed and pretty hopeless. Then one day, the party was facing off against a beholder, which is a large orb-shaped being that has 10 eye stalks and 1 main eye, each containing a powerful magic. While facing said beholder, the Goatsrider planned a delayed reaction to dive in front of the next beam that came from said beholder, which had become a tactic he often used now, since his life was in shambles. Except the next beam turned out to be a disintegration ray, an attack that instantly defeats anything it hits. That's when Goatsrider saw his opportunity. He dove at the beam, and at the last possible second, he grabbed the goat by the horns and yanked its head into the path of the beam. And it works! The goat was disintegrated into nothing with one final scream. He did it! The curse was lifted, although he did keep the name Goatsrider for the rest of his life. It wasn't long after that, the party found an abandoned cart with a donkey hitched to it. She was a friendly donkey, and the party took pity on her. They freed her from the cart, and the Goatsrider had an idea.
No point in wasting this mounted combat feat,
he said as he mounted the friendly donkey. Instantly, the donkey exploded in hellfire and was placed with... That's right, the cursed goat. Back from the dead, curse intact, and screaming louder than ever. The end. Thanks for listening. If you like D&D podcasts, which clearly you do, be sure to check out one of our favorites, All D20. You can find them on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or anywhere else you listen. To submit a fail, visit our website at bedtimefairyfails.com or message me on Instagram or Facebook. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as Bedtime FairyFails.